So it's hard to imagine I've been back in Hawaii for 10 years. I was born and raised in Hawaii and then moved away for college, and I thought I'd be gone forever, but life changes and things happen and decided to move back. And it's a fairly familiar story, but I want to share the details of my transition back to Hawaii. And it really is a transition or a readjustment to life back home after you've been gone for so long. Since moving back home, I've experienced successes and failures. Some were completely out of my control and others were just due to fortuitous timing or chance or luck. So I thought it'd be interesting to share some of those highlights and challenges that I've experienced over the last 10 years. Maybe interesting or helpful to some people consider moving back to Hawaii. Man, I haven't been hiking since the pandemic. It's gonna be a long day. So I've been teaching at the University of Northern Colorado for a few years and it was really great. Thought I would be there forever, but then I realized that the path to an adjunct faculty just would take too long and I wasn't that patient, so decided to look elsewhere and figured that I might as well move back home, see my parents, and come back to where I was from. So I decided to drive all the way from Colorado to Northern California, Berkeley, to join my brother to hang out with him for a summer. And after a summer with him, shipped my car back home and figured I'd just find a job somewhere. No plans, just figure out what I would do when I got here. And in a lot of ways, it felt like a failure. I remember at the time, it felt like I had given up on the mainland, like it was too hard and I couldn't handle. But I know a lot of people decide to move back for whatever reason, but for me, I was pretty determined that I was going to live on the mainland, and because of that, I know that my mindset switched. It was like something in my mind, I just turned the switch on that I would not come back and this would just be where I visited my family. But then when you have to unswitch that and now you're gonna move back home, there are a lot of things that had to happen in my life, and relationships and people that I hadn't really talked to in a while never really tended to that, and that was my mistake. I should have done better on that. But then I need to find a job. And I thought that I'd maybe work at the shipyard because I'd worked there years earlier. But I remember there was this job posting I saw online. It was like a random Hawaii job website. I didn't think it was a real job. I thought it was like this weird random job. And I'm like, is this legitimate? And it turned out to be legitimate. And I got a call back and had an interview. I remember when I showed up that day, I got lost because the building was so hard to figure out where everything was. And the interview was good, but they had me take a written test. And in the written test, I remember I didn't know what was going on. I had never done anything like that. I was capable of writing, but never quite the type of writing that they were asking me to do. So I figured after the test, that would be pretty much it for me. I would not hear back from them again. And so life went on. And I remember I was at this job fair at Blaisdell, and I was just about to go into the job fair and I received a phone call. And it was an offer to come work at that place. And I was quite surprised to hear that. And I told the director that I would think about it. And then I went into the job fair knowing that I had a job offer, which is really nice. I wasn't desperate. So I accepted the job knowing that it was only going to be temporary, but that was fine. I didn't really have any other future plans. And when I looked at the other candidates that I was up against, sort of my peer class, they were all more qualified than I was. So I figured that I wouldn't be around for the permanent positions, it would just be purely temporary. But to my surprise, I ended up getting an offer to work there permanently. And of course I accepted it. And the job really changed my life, mostly because it made me more aware of what was going on in Hawaii. Because before that, I never really paid attention to the news or what really was happening in the state. But this job really forced me to pay attention to what was going on in the state, which I think is a really great thing, something that I never had to do, especially when I was a kid, but even as a younger adult, just never had any interest in. So it was really good that I was exposed to this type of work environment because it made me have to care, made me more aware of what was going on. And so what initially looked like a fake job posting turned out to be a pretty nice career and something that has really impacted me a lot. So once the job was secure, it was time to look for a place to live. I lived with my parents and that was really great. Rent-free, hotel mom and dad, best deal in town. So I knew I wanted to buy my own place. I just had never seen how much these places actually cost. Back in high school, I didn't really look at the cost of homes or condos. So when I did finally look at the prices, it was quite expensive, something that I could not afford. And I missed a few opportunities, but I was fortunate enough to be able to get a place here. And that was really, really a blessing. Whew. But please don't think it came easy. I had to make a lot of sacrifices in order to buy that place. I ate the same thing for lunch every single day. 2 peanut butter sandwiches and a bag of pretzels for at least a year, probably more. And that was just to help save money. That, along with not really going out and buying things, as well as living at home, made it possible for me to actually be able to go and afford the place. And of course, looking back now, the investment has paid off. It'd be pretty much impossible for us to buy a place right now. I mean, the place that we currently own and live in, we couldn't afford to buy it from ourselves. And I think a lot of people are also in that similar situation. So I had the job in place, had the home in place. Now it was time for family. And it's amazing where your spouse can sometimes come into your life, or your future spouse can come into your life. It's often not really who you expect it to be. You go through all these relationships in high school and college and after college, and then maybe the person appears from the least likely of places. I think back to how I met my wife, and interestingly enough, this was like our first get-together here on this trail. I remember I picked her up out in Mililani and we came here to go hiking together, and of course we weren't dating at the time. I just wanted to get to know her, and yeah, you just never know how you're going to meet that person. And that relationship, of course, changed my life. It was the biggest change of my life, as it should be, right? More than the kids and more than graduation. Marrying her just absolutely changed my life. And of course we had challenges. You know, her being from Japan, I had to work on the visa application, and that 90-day fiance thing, definitely very real. The stress is very real trying to put that together. But I think the biggest thing is that marriage has shown me that it's really tough to work together with someone else, to build a life together. The dating thing is pretty easy. Everyone's friendly, putting on their best show, but when it comes time for the marriage, where you're actually trying to do stuff together, put together goals and, you know, try to chase dreams, it's pretty hard to do that with 2 people. And I think it's important to move together as one. That's what we're definitely learning. And then of course, to talk about the boys, the birth of my 2 sons. First one absolutely changed my life. Couldn't sleep for at least a year, so at least a year. But just the responsibility of changing diapers and being aware of someone else, caring for someone else that really needed all that attention. And then the second son made things more interesting, but still having 2 further amplifies the family dynamics. It just makes it a lot harder when I'm trying to split up time between my wife and my 2 boys. They both need my attention in different ways. The older one, more physical, more gotta run and do things. The younger one, more talking, just looking at him. Whew. Man, I'm not a hiking vlogger. This is a lot of work. Whew. Okay. And so this is where I find myself 10 years later. It's a wonderful place to be. Am I glad that I moved back? Absolutely. So happy that I moved back to Hawaii. I wouldn't have traded it for anything. I was able to experience so many wonderful things here in Hawaii. Was able to buy a place, find a wonderful job, get married, have kids. And that's a decision up to everyone, whether they want to stay away from Hawaii or try to make it back. I know it's a lot harder to try and come back now than it was 10 years ago. I don't see it ever getting any easier for people who were born and raised here. So I figure there's really no good time to do it. And I'm glad that I did it. So I hope you enjoyed that little insight into my past and the past 10 years. It seems like such a blur, but a lot has happened in the past 10 years. A lot of great things, a lot of struggles, but I'm really glad that I made it. So thanks for watching, and aloha.